Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Erin, Director of Customer Success here at the DEO. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got an exciting session today. We are diving into how your practice stacks up against benchmarking data from over thousands of dental practices. If you haven't already, grab your notebook because we will be sharing some key data points and strategies that can make a big difference in your growth. We've got an amazing lineup of experts. We hope by the end of this session, you're going to walk away with a clear understanding of where your practice stands and what you can do to take it to the next level. Let's go ahead and get started. I would now like to hand it over to Matt to kick things off. Matt, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Erin. Great to be here. Really excited for the discussion today as well. Let's start with some intros in terms of who's here and what we're going to be talking about. All right, AJ, you want to go first?
Sure, I'm Dr. AJ Acierno. I founded Decision One Dental in the Chicagoland area, around 40 practices, 2019. We did a strategic partnership with Smile Brands, and now I sit as president of clinical operations for Smile Brands, which is about 600 plus offices.
Cool. Eric Giesecke, CEO of Planet DDS. Really excited to be here. Thanks, Matt. Been with Planet DDS for about 10 years, so hopefully some of the insights that we have in the report are justified based on some experience and observations that I've had over that time, but super excited to be here. Thanks, AJ, for joining.
Happy to be here.
I'm Matt Zelen, the COO at Planet DDS. And to Eric's point, we're excited to go through some of the data elements out of our industry report. We recently, Planet DDS recently anonymized and consolidated data across every platform that leverages Planet DDS data, just to get an insight into real metrics, KPIs in the real world, and put it together as a report for our customers and the industry. So Eric, you want to talk a little bit about the report in the background?
Sure. So I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of data that's circulated within dentistry around key metrics, but a lot of the data has been self-reported. And a lot of the data kind of, I think, is aggregated in ways that aren't necessarily as consistently transparent as is necessary. So we are in the unique position, because we work with so many DSOs in the cloud, that we have a lot of insights to the data that is anonymized across that group of customers that allow us to get some insights about what's actually happening in the industry. So the first thing about dental I'll say is that dental is growing. I mean, there's lots of industries out there that aren't as fortunate. Some of this driven obviously by population growth. People will need to get dental work done. But the dental industry is expected to be upwards of $240 billion in 2030, up from 197 and change in 2024. So lots of growth. And what that means for dental groups and dental offices is that continued opportunity to obviously use technology, drive and improve patient care, but there's just going to be more people to treat, and there's going to be more production and opportunities to do. So very fortunate that the industry continues to grow. I think the waves of change within the industry, as we've seen, have been driven a lot of times by economic situations, sometimes by interest rates and cost of capital. We've all seen consolidation waves kind of happen throughout the last 20 years. I think in the midst of right now, people are super focused on efficiency, because I think obviously cost of capital with interest rates being high are high. And so you're not seeing quite as much consolidation and movement within the industry, but that gives people an opportunity to drive things like efficiency and try to understand how to potentially standardize and such. So a very interesting time in an industry that has, I think, a lot of upside. Back to we talked about how the report came to be. I mean, we've had lots of conversations with our customers. We've had a lot of folks super curious, and AJ is going to walk us through some of his insights as a customer that have kind of said, look, how am I doing? Like, there's just this general kind of lack of, I think, awareness within the industry, even amongst DSO peers, about how my DSO or my practices are actually performing. And what we were able to do in a completely anonymized way is to take a big data set and be able to get some true and accurate insights across a lot of different people. And so I think this is really, we're going to continue to do this. We're really excited about it. And let's dig in.
So when I was, I mean, do you guys want me to go through some of the things that I've learned and everything in regards to that?
Let's do it.
So this is kind of like the golden egg that we've all been looking for. When I was in dental school, I'd walk out of a test and everybody would start to congregate and say, how did you do on that test? And it was like, who can fool each other on how well they did, knowing that it probably didn't have all the answers inside that room. When I got into the DSO business, which was 13 years ago, I felt kind of the same way. We love to share with each other, but maybe we don't share everything with each other. And we sure as heck don't share a lot of the negatives with each other. So being able to now aggregate data across many different offices outside of your DSO and be able to benchmark yourself of what is actually happening is the part that we've all been looking for. And I think this is very beneficial for everybody, because at Decision One, hey, we had some areas that we showed, oh my gosh, we are a leader in the field. We have also seen some data that we're like, man, we got some work to do, you know? And I think that's great. I think we can learn from others of what are they doing differently in order to excel in those areas, and what can they learn from us to excel in the areas that we are. So I think this is going to be extremely helpful for the entire dental industry to really be able to benchmark and see what they're good at, drive into specific offices, and learn from them. What are they doing right and what are they doing wrong, and where are their opportunities?
I really like that. I think the you hit the nail on the head a little bit around just gleaning insights, what's working, what's not working. For us, it's also exciting just to help and provide insights into what can help individual practices or DSOs capture as much of this growth. If the business is going to be close to $250 billion, the industry is close to $250 billion, how do we help as much as we can those that are in the industry capture that opportunity? All right, should we dive into just a few data points in the report itself? And AJ, would love to get some feedback too, if this resonates with your group, what you're looking at, if these are the right metrics as well. But I think what's really interesting is just really looking at same store production growth year over year. And again, this is aggregated information across thousands of practices. And so if you're looking at your practice, your production performance relative to this, this is I would say the average across the group. There's a lot of practices that had higher growth than this, and a lot of practices that had less growth from this. And as an example, 40% of the practices actually in 2024 had flat or negative growth, and only 60% showed positive growth. And so it's really interesting to see the discrepancy and the differences across the board. And it's great for individual practices to be able to kind of benchmark themselves against this, especially for those that are flat, like they're right in the middle with everyone else. For those that are growing, there's a lot of good things going on. AJ, how did this resonate with you guys?
Matt, resonated tremendously. I mean, because dentistry is very cyclical. So in the past, I would even say pre-COVID, but even post-COVID, you can kind of talk with your colleagues, and wait a second, the dental industry is kind of on the positive side. Wait a second, dental industry is a little bit on the negative side. 2024 was a very tough year to read, right? You were talking to some that were like, man, it's a great year. And then you were talking to others, be like, this is the most struggling that we've ever had. And this proves it right here. I mean, this is very unusual to see. And I think going forward, it is going to be like this for the next few years. So seeing a same store growth is important. I also believe that same store, when you go out and you ask and you don't have these type of numbers where you are able to aggregate it like you guys are, you get differences in what people say is same store. So same store could be in some cases 2 years. They drop it after a year. It's all over the board on same store, and you can kind of manipulate the data a little bit to show, wait a second, this is our same store. And by the way, it looks better when we push them off at 2 years instead of 1 year, and so on and so forth. So when somebody from the outside industry is just saying, here is how we're measuring it, and this is how everybody stacks up, man, that is a huge game changer.
Yeah, one of the things that we notice is there's a lot of information out there about the dental market, dental industry in general. So much of that is self-reported. So this is a chance for us to put together unbiased aggregated information that anybody can use to kind of compare or benchmark against all the other information that's out there. There's a wealth of information in this report. Average case acceptance rate of 57%, meaning any treatment plan presented to a customer, 57% of the time on average was accepted and either scheduled or completed. Which I think is great. It varied significantly, kind of like the growth rates, but varied significantly across the board. There were some of the locations that actually saw less than a 10% case acceptance rates, and some that saw over 90% case acceptance rates. So it's a really broad spectrum, but also just good to see that on average, most of the practices using Planet DDS software saw 57% case acceptance rate. AJ, how did this compare with what you see?
So this was one of the areas that we are definitely need some improvement on, because we have been looking at case acceptance forever. We've been in cloud-based network. We were with QDW before and now Denticon. So we've been looking at this since 2012 on the case acceptance side. For my fellow doctors that are looking at this, of course, you're going to say, well, what happens if you have multiple treatment plans in there and all that stuff? Yes. That's where kind of the noise is at, but it's not really noise because it all shakes out in the end. Hence where you get 57% on average, right? And you'll never see something in the 90% in the 90 percentile range. But for case acceptance for us, I mean, we were lower than 57%. So we want to now look at what offices were higher, what offices were lower, and really be strategic on where we're helping offices. Before we were measuring ourselves. So we were sitting there going, well, here's our average. Well, it must be pretty good because we're only measuring it to ourselves. So now that we have an industry standpoint, we can go, wait a second, we actually do have a problem. And our offices that are below what we are in our average in our own company, we're like, man, they really have a problem. So we want to jump in and help them. Case acceptance, you know, and I know you're going to talk about case completion here in a second, but case acceptance for us is probably the number one factor. So we have systems in our practice. And when we look at systems, we look at people first, then we look at patient flow, and then we look at treatment presentation. And we want to know how much are we presenting and how much are we actually accepting? And then of course, how much are we actually getting done, which you're going to get to in a second.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You know, it could be as simple as just shifting the narrative of how the practitioners present the case plan so that the patients really understand the value and then accept the treatment plan thereafter. But identifying like where you land relative to the benchmark just gives you that indication. Do we need to do training? Are we doing great? Like it's great to see that you guys are actively using it as well.
Matt, in the last month, what we figured out with that is that when we went back into these offices that had low case acceptance, right?
Yeah.
We usually found, hey, we might have a new doctor in there. We might have a new office manager or somebody new presenting treatment that we weren't getting in front of fast enough to help coach them in a better way. So now we're able to see this in real time moving forward to say, wait a second, stop. This is how we're going to do it. Because our case acceptance rate before, again, we were just kind of measuring it to ourselves. And we were like, oh, yeah, they kind of have an issue. But now when you look, you go, no, they really have an issue and we've got to jump in there faster.
Yep. And it dominoes into this one, the case completion rate, which is interesting to see last year in 2024. So this stat of 42% is looking at all of the treatment plans that were presented in the first half of last year. And what percent of those presented treatment plans were completed by the end of 2024. So again, there's broad discrepancies across the board in terms of how individual practices performed, but on average, 42% of the treatment plans presented in the first half of last year were completed by the end of that year. Now, there's some treatment plans that last a month or two, some treatment plans that last more than that couldn't be completed by the end of the year. But I think it's a really interesting stat to see 57% case acceptance rate and then a 42% case completion rate against that.
Yeah, this is a punch in the gut, Matt. I would tell you, you ask any dentist and you go, hey man, what's your case acceptance rate at the end of the day? Everybody's like 100%, man. Everybody was shaking their head yes in front of me, you know? So getting to the case acceptance rate is a hard pill to swallow. The completion rate is really a punch in the stomach. I mean, you take this into any service industry, you know, and I hate to compare this, but I have a really good friend that owns car dealerships. And I mean, we're below that. We're below the closure rate of car dealerships, you know, and that just tells you where the sense of trust is and where we really as a dental industry have to focus in on with our patients, the patient experience, creating that trust in them in order to get their case completed. We're big on same day starts. We're big on, hey, listen, you got to get them in the next week. You cannot push them out a week, because we have been looking at completion rate again for 12 years. And what we see is that between the 1st and the 15th of the month, we want 90% of all dentistry put into that month. The second week, and we have it per week, we have different levels that we expect. And then the second half we'll start to see trickle into the next month. Once we see those numbers go off, you start to see your productivity decline because of the amount of people that cancel. So
yeah, agreed. Well, and then we'll get into the cancel rates in just a little bit, but I think what's interesting too is just the average number of new patients per practice per month. And it varies widely, number of practitioners, location that you're in, but on average, there are 43 new patients seen per practice every month. And so did this resonate with you, AJ? Do you guys see the same level of new patients per month?
Yes, it did. It did resonate with us. And this is where I know a lot of DSOs have a little different metric inside their organization. So it's good to see our internal metric versus something that includes specialty and per month.
Yeah.
It also depends on how many chairs do you have. So we're an acquisitional based company. So we're acquiring practices with only 4 to 6 chairs. So that's a difference between my other part of the business that has 13 to 15 chairs, and all of a sudden you'll see 43 new patients move up to 70 and 90 new patients just because you have room to put them. So it is nice to see finally what are we averaging comparatively to others out there. Helps a lot.
Yeah, agreed. And even this gets back to just enablement on the positioning for case acceptance in this in terms of new patients. If there's an area where you're actually falling below this kind of industry norm, looking at like, how are you presenting your brand? How are you attracting new patients? How are you getting awareness of the services that you do in each practice? But you wouldn't really focus on that unless you had the ability to kind of benchmark against what the standard or norm would be.
Yeah. Yep.
I think what's interesting to see, just the number of new patients varies broadly across the board. Like I mentioned, I'm also with everything. There's a broad discrepancy of the number of new patients each practice sees. And in the industry report, there's a bunch of information too around gross production per role, hygienist, dentist, the practice overall. AJ, did this match what you guys are seeing, or was it any interesting insights from this one?
It was very good. I mean, for everybody out there, when you see gross, it is a net daily productivity. And when we're looking at this, I would tell you, we were pretty excited about our dentist and where we were moving on that and our practice. We maybe wanted to throw up when we looked at our hygienist numbers. So it's definitely, this is it. If you're going to drive anything to the end result of your pay, this number is the holy grail of what we've always tried to get to. Where are we stacking up in the industry per service line? And honestly, this is the first time I think you guys know this. So I'm sitting at Orbit with you guys, and this report comes out, and I think Eric, you might have been talking, or somebody's talking, and my phone is just like ding, 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 and everybody's like, "Did you just see what Denticon sent out?" Because this has been something that we've always had to go to, the finance people and say, "What do you think?" We never really had data aggregated like this across the United States over multi-practices to really find out what this really means. I know you guys are now going to take this, you're learning from this and now moving it to like, what's just a GD office and what includes specialty. And there's just so much we can do with this to benefit ourselves. But man, it is a game. This is a game changer. It is the holy grail of what we've always been looking for. Very much appreciative. And I know our offices are appreciative also.
Yeah, that's great. It was interesting. I was on stage presenting this at Orbit, and the amount of phones that came out and went up to take a picture of the screen when this slide came up was indicative of the value of the data. So it was great to see. I thought what was incredibly interesting in the entire report is that on average, 15.5, over 15% of these scheduled appointments get canceled or rescheduled before it happens. And on top of that, 7.4% of patients just no-show. So if you think of it, almost 23%, on average, 23% of scheduled business doesn't happen. Either it's rescheduled beforehand or they just don't show up. And it's been really good to talk to some of our customers around this about, what technologies are they using to make sure patients are aware of their and reminded about their appointments, getting feedback beforehand, or even quick fill if you can find a patient that is kind of on standby when there's an opening in the schedule. But to me, like, it is interesting to see that on average, almost 23% of the time, the appointments that are scheduled just don't happen.
Yeah, Matt. For me, it wasn't shocking, right? I'm a dentist. I'm still a practicing dentist, so I see the one guarantee I can have in dentistry is that what the schedule looks like in the morning will not be what it looks like at the end of the day, right?
Yep.
And we do have to use technology, because back in the old days when I first got into dentistry, it was just all I relied on was people getting phone calls. And then as text messaging got in there, or I shouldn't say before text messaging, then it was, okay, well, let's do an automated system to call their office or call their homes. And then it was a text messaging system. And then people wanted it in print also still. And then all of a sudden now we're back here where we have all that technology. We send it in print, we send it in text message, we have robocalls, and we're back to the beginning where people just want a phone call, right? Like this is an area that I do have to boast a little bit. This is an area that we have some really, really good numbers on, from an average no-show rate, 2.9% and 10% on our canceled rate. But that is not due to just one piece of technology. That's everything. We use technology in each of those aspects, but our biggest savior is that we have to make sure that somebody says, hey, I just want to see if you had any questions in regards to your next appointment. And then make sure that we're getting somebody on a phone.
Yeah, great to see that you guys are performing better than the benchmark on this. And I agree, it takes a myriad of kind of solutions to really get to that level of performance.
It was good to see one of the numbers
be
better. I mean,
100%.
But you know what's fascinating to me is that I've never heard anybody say that before. With all the technology and the way that human nature is in terms of just not showing up to stuff, maybe fundamentally to maximize and optimize that, you need to have a human interaction with someone to actually get them to feel like they're obligated to show. It's so interesting to hear, like, all the AI stuff, all the reappointment stuff, all the things that are happening. Is like you found that the most effective way is actually to hear someone's voice and build that connection, which I assume builds some obligation to show.
Yeah, Eric, when it's all said and done, this is a relationship-based business, right?
Yep.
It still is. It still is. I don't care what anybody says. I tell dental students, I teach in dental schools, and I'll tell them, hey, listen, you are getting into a service-based industry. I know you think you're getting into healthcare. You're getting into service-based industry first, then healthcare, So, and when it's all said and done, we got it. The case acceptance rate is a perfect example. Like, we are losing the ability to have trust with patients and relationships that create a case acceptance that's going to be higher. Well, when you don't have a relationship with somebody, it's really easy to cancel an appointment. When you know that person and they know about their family and they know about your things that you like in life, and you have some sort of connection, we really teach connection and how to form a connection. It's tough for somebody to go, man, I'm going to call up AJ and I'm going to say I'm not showing up tomorrow after you just scheduled an hour, So that's where we're seeing a lot of this touch, real personalized touch helps in those aspects.
It is interesting to see it come full circle back to like a personal call versus the robo dialers. And I don't miss the robo dialers at all.
Nope.
No.
It's a great segue into another portion of the report where it includes, not only all the metrics information and more than what we just went through, but also what we're seeing from a technology trend throughout the industry. So there are 5 kind of key areas that we see. I think the first one is pretty interesting to me, just because there's so much innovation happening, whether it's AI tools or other tools, that it's really important that for any practice that runs their system on a foundational practice management application, that application has to have an open architecture, secure, but open architecture through APIs to be able to leverage and connect to other platforms, other tools, because your platform will be there for years, but you need to be able to flexibly adjust and evolve with the technology trends, because there might be something that comes out next year or 2 years or 5 years that is market changing for the dental industry, and your platform needs to be flexible enough to do that. So I know we've done quite a bit at Planet DDS in trying to make sure that is API driven, that we can integrate with other technologies. But I'm curious, AJ, as you see your ecosystem from a technology standpoint, like how important is it to be able to leverage future technology, future new tools, future thing that comes out?
I mean, it's from a leveraging of cost standpoint, it's huge. I mean, just think about this, like Apple, and all of a sudden you want a different technology. You are kind of forced into an ecosystem that you have to pay for a certain something. You really have no control over a negotiation of price, right? And when you have an open API system and you're working with other vendors and you're working with people that you might have a different relationship with, you might get a better pricing on the outside, and now you want to bring that into the ecosystem that you're currently using. So if you strangle that off and all of a sudden it's like, nope, you have to use these people, it's a very difficult place for us as an organization to be, because it all of a sudden it takes away a lot of our negotiating power and those type of things. I know Denticon has been very keen to that, and that has helped us out a lot.
Yeah, great. Eric, do you want to talk a little bit about RCM automation and the trend?
Yeah, I'd like to add something. I think that's a great perspective on it. I think there's also a ton of really cool stuff happening, and dovetails a little into the RCM conversation, that partners are doing that we just as a company and a platform are not able to solve. We can't solve everything. So having a relationship with some of the innovative companies that are doing that through an API will allow folks like you, AJ, to take advantage of. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff happening on the RCM side. RCM in dental is kind of strange from my perspective. When I came into dental 10 years ago, I traditionally thought of rev cycle as kind of like an overall ownership of the revenue generation and collection of a business, kind of the medical approach, in which you've got basically you take over all of the billing, all of the credentialing, all of the eligibility type stuff, and you're responsible for collecting and getting the revenue. Dental is strange in my mind because you've got a data problem. You've got the end carriers, who ultimately are the owners of the data related to eligibility, remaining benefits, and such. You have the PMS system, and you have an exchange in between. And so you basically have the answer associated with what a patient is eligible for housed in 3 different places. Now, when those 3 different places connect and they're passing data, some of which happens well, some of which doesn't happen well, there's degradation in terms of the accuracy and the consistency of that data. So you basically are in a situation where people fundamentally don't know what a patient is going to be owed and what they're going to get from an insurance company. So they bill UCR and they deal with it in the back end. So and every DSO deals with it slightly differently. And Denticon, I think, deals with it pretty elegantly and allows you to bill but still post differently. But it is an amazing RCM challenge related to lack of data transparency. And so with Denticon and with us, and I think the industry is going in this way, you see a lot of cool companies that are building and solving some of the problems around the PMS solution, is trying to standardize and offer that data in a much more clean and complete way. An example for us is eligibility. There's lots of companies that are trying to standardize the 270, 271 eligibility transaction, log into portals, get the additional data that's not provided there, and provide a complete coverage table for a patient, so that when a patient comes in, a doctor can effectively treatment plan and let the patient know exactly what the patient owes at the time of treatment. This is revolutionary. It's not quite real-time claim adjudication and what the holy grail has been kind of in the medical space, but at least you're just not billing the insurance company whatever you think you can get and then going back and deciding whether or not you want to collect from the patient afterwards. So there's a ton of stuff happening on that. Now, if you get that data structure correct and you're able to kind of get a complete view into what's owed by the patient and what is going to be paid by the insurance carrier, you can build a lot of automation. Like, for example, if a post comes through and one procedure is cleared through an 835, but there's another procedure with a reason code, instead of somebody having to look at a EOB or having to go and log in, the system should be smart enough to realize, well, at the end of the day, I billed this amount, but my fee schedule wasn't right. So there was a downgrade and I write off the balance or decide what to do with it. So once that data gets better, right, and we can actually end up starting to use it in an effective way, we can build automation that's going to drive a ton of efficiency within the DSO. So I think this and AI are probably the two most exciting areas in dental right now when it comes to trends and technology, but there's a ton of cool stuff cooking here. Hey, do you have any thoughts on any of that stuff? I know you guys have been looking at, we've presented enhanced eligibility to you guys recently. Any thoughts on that?
In 5 years, the way you do RCM will not be how you do RCM today.
Yeah.
It is the paradigm shift is happening right now. We're just in the beginning phases of it. And for the first time ever, I've seen insurance companies actually say, wait a second, hang on. This actually helps us also, you know, because in the past it was, hey, you guys get some technology that figures us out. We're going to figure out better technology to trump what you just figured out how to fix for us. And now both this is a win-win because we're able to take FTEs off their plate. We're able to get adjudication better, but it's a whole process, right? I mean, it's such a complicated process because it starts at the front. You got to verify, right? Now we got to send a clean claim in. Now the claim goes out. Okay, what happens if it's not clean? It gets rejected. Then you send out a clean one. Then it gets into their system. And the question is, are they actually adjudicating this correctly, right? Like, and now an EOB comes back, and now you got to take the EOB. Just think of all that process, right? The great news is every single one of those areas, I know Denticon is working on, and everybody else is working on every one of those areas to not have a human hand touch it, because the amount of adjustments that go out on a daily basis that shouldn't go out is immense. We fix that problem, I'm telling you, we fix a lot of revenue and growth issues pretty fast. So very excited about this RCM process. Appreciate you guys being on the forefront of really looking into this.
Yeah, and speaking of automation, you know, the moving to the next one in terms of leveraging AI to drive operational efficiency, there's so many things that are coming out in terms of AI tools. AJ, is there any kind of key interests in this area for you guys?
So I lived this now for the last 3 years. It seems like day and night. So let's just get realistic, right? Case acceptance is down. Case acceptance in dentistry has never been like off the charts high. We are a human that's trying to tell somebody that something's wrong and trying to get to them to accept treatment all within probably a 4 to 7 minute period. That is a very difficult ask, especially when you're going to tell them, hey, by the way, in order to fix this, I'm going to stick a needle in your face. I'm going to go ahead and drill on you. And then afterwards, you could have some discomfort. I mean, just think about that, right? Like, hey, is anybody sold on that? So the aspect is always has been, how can we put technology around somebody to help our dentists do that better? And AI radiography is there. That is what can help. It was, I thought a paradigm shift in my career was the intraoral camera, that I use every single day, hundreds of times a day. I use probably that more than an Explorer. Now it's intraoral camera and digital AI radiography. I mean, I don't even ask for it any other way. Full transparency to your guys, when you say open API, this is very true with Denticon because I use 3 different AI companies in there. I will say embedded is the only way to get it to work. If it's not embedded, not going to work. Okay. So they're just everybody, I'll save you like hours and days of like having to test systems. If it's not embedded, don't even test it. It won't work. But I will say that we use it. We use the data that comes from the AI on a morning huddle sheet. So we're increasing the standard of care in our offices based on it. It is a game changer for operational and clinical efficiency. I would say for operational and clinical excellence, and the standard of care is just immense on this.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed wholeheartedly. You know, we talked about the evolution of so many aspects of patient care, the dental industry in general. It is interesting to see just the overall evolution of the patient experience. I know, Eric, you have a lot of conversations with customers around what they're doing in this area. Any comments around digitizing that patient experience?
Yeah, I mean, AJ, I think you said it well. For a service industry, the patient experience is not great for most dental. And aside from the fact that I think you articulated super well, you have 4 to 7 minutes to convince someone to take pain, solve a problem, but fundamentally take pain. Like when I go to the dental office, or and I was just we were talking to our product managers and we were talking about the patient experience. We did a quick survey of the number of people that actually did digital check-in versus like paper forms. So 60% of the small subset of people that had recently been to the dentist had actually filled out a piece of paper. And that is, it's 2025. That's crazy. You should be able to take a picture of your insurance card, should take the information. You should be able to have the information saved if you're an existing patient. You should be able to do a kiosk, you should be able to do it on your phone, do it in advance. All of that stuff in terms of a very slick experience just doesn't really exist as much in dental as you think. For what is fundamentally a very kind of high touch service industry, as you said, AJ. So I think there's a ton that can be done there. We saw for a period of time a lot of people in the industry with titles like patient experience, which I think is a very interesting way to think about it, which I do think as like a focused area, that's an area in dentists that'll continue to evolve. We've had customers, one customer at Orbit who won an award is Pepperpoint, and AJ, you mentioned this as well. They view the patient experience in a very analog way. So not necessarily digital innovation, but they would call their patients up individually and they would even customize and personalize the experience. So where you mentioned, AJ, they talked about, what questions can I answer? I think they would even go a step further and take notes in the chart and say, hey, how's your daughter doing? I understand. It's very, very that detail, which kind of underlies the need to build that relationship to get the great metrics that you've shown in terms of no-show rates and cancellation. Now, at the flip side of that is how do you kind of customize that very personal experience at scale by using digital innovation? We've all been on ChatGPT or Grok or one of these things, and we've seen the videos they can build. I mean, we could probably build videos of ourselves, actually customize videos of ourselves for individuals based on a certain talk track. So the technology can help us do things at scale, but there's a lot of really cool stuff happening from a patient experience perspective, and I think it's an area where dentistry, quite frankly, is not quite caught up to some of the other industries that I've seen.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, Eric, that you say that. So I'm a big person of bringing outside industry people into dentistry, right? Like from the restaurant business and from the retail business, and when they always come into dentistry, they're like, "Wow, we were doing this in 1990. Like, what are you guys doing here?" So I do believe, and I didn't think of this until you just said that, but digital helps to enhance the analog. The analog is that we are still touching people. Like, we still are physically in front of people. And I would say we are then working in people in their personal space. So us just solving this digitally will never work. We still have to create individuals that can go ahead and create a relationship and create a great experience with the patient. That one-on-one will never, but you can enhance it with some of the digital and some of the easy, the efficiencies that a PMS system can put in place, right? From the greeting to moving the patient to the back, to having great technology, being able to showcase that technology. All those things are good. But I've also seen like the best of digital, best PMS system, best everything, and you have a dud in front of you. Man, that's just like you get a case acceptance somewhere around like 22%, So you have to have that personal interaction still.
Yep, and I think that probably transitions into this last one pretty well. You talk about like the personalized experience from a patient standpoint to build that trust. I think the same applies in the technology industry. Like the relationships that we build with our customers or DSOs, like that trust has to be there. And so if we are trying to partner with our customers to help them run their business for the next decade, it doesn't happen without trust. And so I know a lot of investment and time has been put into shoring up the Planet DDS infrastructure so that we have active multi-region clusters in case something does happen. We have a trust center so that like our SOC 2 type 2 compliance is up there. Our pen test results are up there. We have a status page. All of this is because we're not trying to close a sale. We're trying to build a trusted relationship with our customers for years down the road. And so I'm curious, AJ, like how much does this impact some of the decision making with you and the team around the technologies you bring into your own stack?
Number one. So I don't know if anybody, at least in my house, the kitchen could be burning down and I don't have a lot of kids running to grab like a fire extinguisher to put it out. But if the internet goes down, man, my whole entire house is turned upside down, right? Like, holy crap, I can't do anything, you know?
Yeah.
So we have put ourselves in a position in dental to where, man, if our vendor partner, something goes wrong, it goes down. Our PMS system's down, our internet's down, whatever goes down, that all of a sudden renders us incapable to work, you know? Now, we have put in redundancies to make sure that we could still work even if these things go down, but that is not a great team member experience, right? Like I never receive a call, man, I just don't like that Denticon. I just don't like that. I have to press that key or whatever. Never. But I do receive calls when all of a sudden they're like, hey, listen, my internet went down, or I couldn't do this, or it's running slow or something like that. So being able to partner with you all, and again, we've been on this for 12, 13 years. So we've experienced every aspect of growth pains in the cloud-based system. And being able to work with you all to say, wait a second, how can we solve that user experience issue and where are there most of their issues is number one, has to be looked at as every vendor. And number two is security. I mean, our cybersecurity, if you asked, I was trying to think about this the other day because one of my friends is in cybersecurity. They're like, when did cybersecurity become like a big deal for you guys? And I'm like 3 years ago, I think it was like 3 years ago, where all of a sudden we were, holy cow, we have to budget a big portion to security. And having partners that realize that and understand that and are helping us and are on our same team is very important.
Yep. The whole industry, tech industry, to support dentistry doesn't work unless there's security around the information, all that stuff, as well as to your point, availability. My house is the same way. If that internet goes out,
okay, good.
my kiddos are running around. But if something else is going wrong, like it's fine.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Well, AJ, I really appreciate you participating in this conversation. This has been great for everyone in the audience. If you do want to, learn more about the report, here is a QR code. Please go out and see it. Would love to get feedback. To Eric's earlier point, we're really excited about this. It's something we're going to be doing on an annual basis going forward. And so if there's any specific metrics or things you'd like us to add to this, just let us know. I think, Aaron, with that, I'll pass it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Matt. And of course, to AJ and Eric as well, and to all of you for joining us. We hope you're walking away with some new insights and ideas that you can immediately bring back to your team. If you found today's content helpful, be sure to stay connected for more webinars and resources coming your way soon. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.